so inclined, you can try and take a little swim and get some exercise on, get some of that vitamin D in the system. Because the last week or so has been a little bit rainy off and on, but overall, lovely Sunday afternoon. So I'm really happy that we can spend at least the next hour together. We're going to touch on a few topics this Sunday, no guest again today, particularly because the final topic in which I wish to discuss, I would hope that I would be able to encourage some outside participation because it concerns the upcoming SKNFA elections and a perspective that I thought I would want to share with all of my listeners and viewers. So I'm hoping that all of you are safe and comfortable at the very least. And yeah, we can start off today by discussing the one day international that would have taken place between the West Indies and Pakistan in Providence in Guyana. And according to the report, torrential rain was responsible for washing out the game. Only 2, but 1.2 was able to be bowled. And as such, Pakistan holds a 1-0 lead in the 4 T20 series. 4 of them is going to be played. They won the last one. We had some good performances from the captain, Nicholas Puran, on the previous Puran, the vice captain and current captain, Nicholas Puran. And even Jason Holder produced very good figures of 4 for 26. Unfortunately, Pakistan was able to hold them off. They had to make 20 runs in the last over, West Indies, and they were unable to accomplish it. Some very good bowling from trying to remember his name now. He'll come back. But yes, Pakistan was able to hold out despite the to them. So they lead the series 1-0. And West Indies have one more opportunity to level, I think if I'm correct, fixtures, one more opportunity to try and level the series at the very least, Tuesday at 11 a.m. And if that is able to yield a result, a positive result for the West Indies, then it will level the series between them and Pakistan. There's also two test matches coming up thereafter. On the Thursday, the 12th of August, the test match, and then subsequently on the 20th of August, they'll be coming, facing both of them being played in Kingston, Jamaica, and they will be, that will decide who will win that particular series. And cap off what I would consider a very, very busy summer for West Indies cricket on the whole. It's a mixed bag of results, but it's good to see them getting this much cricket in, and it's good to see the team gradually coming into its own. It's obviously a long way from where we still want it to be, but the encouraging thing is that you're getting a lot of cricket. They're getting a lot of cricket in. Because right after this, they'll be going into the CPL, which I believe starts on the 26th of August. That is going to be pretty exciting, given the one-day performances of our Patriots thus far. We had a worrying sign of Evan going off injured, retiring hurt in his quick-fire innings in the last one-day international T20, sorry, and he also did not appear in this last one here. So here's wishing him speedy recovery, in saying that we hope to have everyone on island on or before the 26th, when we are to see the kickoff of the CPL 2021 here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And plans and programs are underway to get that there going, and we will have a lot more discussion, a lot more interaction from the Patriots management and owners over the next few weeks. That's something that's going to be pretty promising. it's good to see that the management trying to engage, even if on the social media and usual media perspective, where they keep you informed as to what's going on with the team, and everyone is therefore able to follow. Yes, it's a lot of you have our small share of national players, but I think the focus is based on the franchise cricket is to build a team now and build a long-term platform. And it's pretty exciting thus far to be privy to some of it and to discuss some of it. And there's a lot more that we're going to share with you in the upcoming weeks about the CPL. The next area of brief highlight is the NBA draft, where Detroit traded Cade Cunningham at number 1 as expected. And all the teams are right now going through the free agency trade decisions. And as usual, Lakers are always first out the block. And they made a monster trade for Mr. Russell Westbrook. And it'll be interesting to see how these guys come together, because one thing that the Lakers have been saying that they're missing is out-and-out point guard. Russell is a lot, like LeBron likes to attack the ring, but he's also very good at providing assists. So between himself, LeBron, not so much Anthony, I don't think Anthony needs the ball as much, but himself and LeBron, both of them need the ball a lot. He will be able to provide a lot of support in terms of the scoring, definitely in terms of defense as well. He's also a very athletic man, young man, because he's still 33 years old. So the Lakers have made a very big move already in the free agency and in the trade market. And it'll be interesting to see if they're going to make any further moves and whether or not it will be sufficient for them to be able to compete with the other teams who are constantly looking to compete, including the Brooklyn Nets, as we know, who is the other super team now, because normally it would have been 3 superstars, now it's almost like 4, because I've noticed conveniently now Andre Drummond is no longer mentioned as a superstar for the Los Angeles Lakers, even though he was a franchise player for the Detroit Pistons a few years ago. So I'm following the narratives as well, the undercover narratives, to try to see how they can pump up their team with as many superstars as possible in order to try and compete with the Brooklyn Nets. Thankfully, Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks was able to show them that sometimes it's not how many stars you have, but they will to win, will to battle for it. As well as the Phoenix Suns, give them credit. So yeah, Cade Cunningham to Detroit Pistons, Russell Westbrook going right now to the Los Angeles Lakers. It seems there are a lot of rumors about Kyle Lowry moving over to the Heat, but I don't want to start making too many predictions, and because the NBA over the last few seasons were quite unpredictable in terms of the transfers and trade decisions. So yeah, we just leave it as is in terms of reporting what has already been done. Now, on to the Olympics. And first of all, there are 1 or 2 topics that I would like to highlight from the Olympics. The first of which is the Jamaica 1-2-3 sprint 100 meter winners, female, yesterday. It was something of beauty to watch these 3 Jamaican women with their own styles grace the world stage at such amazing speeds, and literally did it as if it were a walk in the park. It was almost like the Jamaicans have their nationals in preparation for the champs. Champs is the high school. It was almost like a champs, but in the older age group, because my goodness gracious, these ladies, they pull it off. Elaine Thompson, congratulations to you. You're also now the world record holder. Well earned. This is your second gold medal in a row. You've had your challenges over the last 5 years because it was 2016 since you won your last gold, and you've always seemed to be able to confound the critics and the doubters and pull off the big moments. And in truth, when persons who are watching you go through the heats, um, I think most fair-minded fans would say that Elaine Thompson Hera, I must add, um, she looked too comfortable going through the heats, and she justified their belief, and they should. Fraser Price, one of my the pocket rocket, one of my long came very good and creditable second. And I also want to give good shout out to Sharika Jackson. An interesting thought on that on her, in the sense that Fraser Price got out got out to the best start in the race. Elaine Thompson got out to a good start, but was not a very good one. Sharika Jackson, however, her start was pretty poor, and she powered her way, I would say, from the 30-meter mark toward the finish line, where, I mean, you always say this, but had it been another 2 meters or so, she would have definitely gotten silver. But her ability to accelerate after such a poor start and still maintain that pace consistently throughout toward the end of the race was extremely good. And it was credit to her. You know, she's 27 years old. She's a lot younger than her compatriots. So, you know that that's not the end of her career. So it'll be interesting to see how she does. If she's able to improve on her start, you never know if that's your next gold medal winner, sprinting sensation. Although she has been received her 4x1, and she also runs 400 meters, has a series of bronze and silver medals as well in her career thus far. So she's not a newcomer by any means, but definitely was very good. I was observing her run especially because of the way she powered through to the end, and I thought that was not given one of the other names that involved no, some more Olympic highlights. Well, I sat in today and watched a bit of it this morning, and it seems to be the year of the Italians, in the sense that the men's 100 meters was the most open that it has been for the last, well, I can say probably since in my lifetime, because I've always known the favorites going into the 100-meter final. And this time around, outside of Andre de Grasse, maybe, and even the winner, who is more of an indoor champion, you really didn't have any big names that was going for the men's 100-meter gold medal. Marcel Jacobs eventually did so, won it in a time of 9.80 seconds. And credit to him, because this is even faster than Usain Bolt did it in 2016. So 9.80 seconds, and he was Andre de Grasse, whom I had a little hope for, because he was always the one that seemed to be falling short of the Usain, because he just came through that period, almost when Usain was winning everything. And he just didn't have what it took. Again, I think his start was poor, and he didn't have what it took to push him through to first place. And in truth, Mr. Jacobs, running 9.80, it's going to be hard to beat anybody doing that kind of time. So full credit to him. It's not like anybody lost to him. He won. And he's Italian by nationality. As far as I do believe he hails from the United States, or was born in the United States and runs for Italy. but I could be corrected there. But nonetheless, he won the medal under the Italian flag, and they would have had their first Olympic medal in terms of men's 100 meters in quite some time in recent history, at the very least. The everybody else who ran that race was looking towards Su Bing Chan, who had a very good semi-final run. When he had a personal best and an Asian record of 9.83. I just wanted to mention that as a side note to the 100-meter dash. Credit to him. I just think he may have made a not safe enough for the finals. He really did not even medal. And then Zarnell Hughes. He was one of the hopefuls. Obviously, you'll get a little bit of UK, how should I put it, goodwill. Great Britain's goodwill, in the sense that they often expect their athletes to be about. But Zarnell actually hails from Angola. But he unfortunately missed the false start. I wonder why. I guess it would have taken up too much time to be allowing false starts, but it would have been, I am certain for any athlete, it's hard to just have that one error and you just are able to perform at the highest stage to get the opportunity to win a medal. I think the demands might be a bit much, but it is what it is, and those are the rules. We also had the very emotional, I would call it, high jump competition. And the medal was eventually shared between Gianmarco Tamberi and Mutaz Essa Bashim. And I enjoyed the energy created by these two jumpers. In fact, all of the jumpers there, with the exception of probably the young American gentlemen, they acquitted themselves as best as they could. I thought that both Bashim and Tamberi looked quite unbothered with their heights, because up until the world record height of 2.39, which both of them would have had 3 failures at, they didn't have any disqualifications or bad jumps. They had scaled all other heights. And in truth, 2.39 would have matched the Olympic record set since 1996. But what was, I thought, a very interesting and I thought very encouraging thing happened when both of them failed to claim 2.39 or jump 2.39. They came together with the official and they agreed to share gold as opposed to a jump. So I was like, both of them immediately hugged each other and started to celebrate between themselves. Now, each have obviously their own backstory to why the struggles they would have had. I think Tamberi brought his cast there to depict or show how he would have gone through injury and everything else since 2016. Bashim equally, was overwhelmed with joy, and both of them, it mattered not to them to be the individual singular best. It mattered to them that they did their best and they were willing to shake and agree to be joint best. And there's so much hope in that, in terms of competitive sport. Yes, I know it's not always times a bit of edge in order to be able to achieve success over your opponents in different disciplines. But the whole spirit of camaraderie, the whole spirit of Olympics, I thought, was exhibited in that one moment with the officiating coming into play. Okay, yes, there are rules, but at the same time, not adhere, you're allowing the finalists to make a decision, and then the finalists themselves to share their medal. Man, yeah, there's a lot to be learned from that entire event this morning, and I do hope that most persons were able to enjoy it and read up on the stories of both Tamberi and Bashin of Qatar. Congratulations again to both. So that would have been two gold medals for Italy, and along with their European Cup final win. It seems to be the year of the Italians, as I mentioned when I started these. So we also, and, and I must also beat the world record in the women's triple jump twice today. She The old world record was set by Ukraine's Inessa Kraverts in 1995 with a 15.50 meter jump. Now, she did it twice, but only one would have been recorded in the sense that one of them was slightly beyond the board, so it was an illegal jump. And she eventually leapt to a sensational 15.67 meters to finish 56 centimeters ahead of Patricia Momoa and Anna Pelletiero in the third. I think Anna was of Momona was of Portugal, and Pelletiero was of Spain. And they unfortunately knocked out the Jamaican, who was also competing for the third Olympics. So it's really sad that she was able to medal, but the performances were warranted medals to these ladies today. And again, Taylor's first gold medal, Unima has, and we do look forward to hearing more from her. The last I would mention is just to mention Rai Benjamin, who would have qualified easily for the men's 400-meter hurdle final. Rai is the son of Winston Benjamin, a former West Indies fast medium pace bowler, and also, well, I guess he was Antiguan, but he's American. He's running for America, but he's Antiguan heritage, given Winston Benjamin's his Antiguan descent. So congratulations to him. And I would also like to give mention of the enjoyable commentary I'm getting from a Caribbean perspective, because generally when we're forced to listen to CBS and NBC and all these other sporting websites, when we're watching World Cup coverage, it usually has so much of a bias in terms of the commentary and commentating that we tend to lose sight of some of those side stories and the fact that there are hundreds of nations participating, and we tend to think that it's from just America alone that counting their medal count, and that's important. But not only have these gentlemen been captivating in terms of their commentary, they've also been very researched, very insightful, and we do hope that this is a sign of things to come. I mean, you never know if the Olympics in this format, given the impact of COVID will remain or change over the next 3 years now, because I don't know if they will try and wait until the 2020, maybe 2028, 2025. But at the end of the day, you really don't want to at the same time lose the crowd's impact was good, but in some instances, I don't think you missed a lot. Maybe athletes would have missed something, but for us at home who are watching, we aren't necessarily feeling that we are missing as much as. Again, that's partially due to the level of the commentary that we're receiving, because those gentlemen there are really doing a fantastic job in sports facts. So kudos to them. I also wanted to spend some time discussing Simone Biles, but I think her discussion about mental illness in sport has been properly fleshed out sufficiently in sporting arenas. I've often been of the view that to push yourself to that type of excellence, you always have to give up something. And glad that she's able to know what's too much for her body, and she's able to step away without before serious injury and without any permanent. If she has it in her to come back again for another Olympics, so be it. But if I mean Simone has done, she's revolutionized women's gymnastics. She performs feats that will not be performed again in the near future, as far as we know. Um, in fact, they've had to outlaw some of her moves and twists and turns because she has been that much more athletic than her compatriots. So if the young lady decides that it's too much for her, then I think she's earned that right. She's sufficient gold medals to last her. In fact, some persons don't get one. Some persons train for years and don't know what to do. So, Simone, if you figure it's too much for you, then I fully support on whatever decision you think is best in your interests. Now, I dedicate a little time to the EPL in terms of the transfers and everything else, but I didn't want to put off this particular discussion much longer because I wanted to involve my audience as well and invite you, if you are listening in, my discussion, monologue for the most part this afternoon, is surrounding the upcoming St. Kitts and Nevis Football Association elections. For those of you who have been paying attention on social media and otherwise, it is now, I guess, coming up to the heated season. You've seen a lot of paraphernalia being shared on social media and otherwise. Elections are due constitutionally or based on the date that has been set 21st of this month, August month. We have our presidential nominees. The presidents have also submitted slates of individuals by which they will be running with. I wanted to discuss not so much the nominees themselves, because I think they should be given an opportunity each. I've already given Mr. Grant his opportunity, and hopefully I've extended the invitation to Mr. Harris to be a part of the bench meeting, to basically go through with us what are some of his plans for his tenure, intended tenure. Nonetheless, my goal with this particular discussion tonight, this afternoon, is to sort of bring a little bit of clarity, ethics back into the discussion in terms of how we are conducting ourselves as an association, because I consider all Kittitians and Visions who are involved in football, whether or not it's a family member, whether or not you follow as a fan, whether or not you make a direct contribution to a club, you're a member of a club. You have an investment being governed by the St. Kitts Nevis Football Association, whom right now, as I said, we'll be going through the final weeks of presidency under the outgoing president, Mr. Anthony Johnson. And warm thank you to him for the efforts. I know that there are many unspoken, and we could spend all day discussing some of the things that he has done, as previous presidents as well too. But we still want to say thank you, and we also want to wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And then, in terms of the new candidates now, to try and see if we could come to some sort of agreement as to the way forward for St. Kitts. I had the privilege, even though I hadn't had the discussions with Mr. Harris, I've also had the privilege of reviewing their proposals for St. Kitts. And both of them have very lofty ideas. I'll say that first. I think it's a good contest from the perspective of they're both football men. They both have dedicated in excess of 20 years of their lives to football and football in St. Kitts and Nevis. They're both professionals and both, as far as I'm aware, men of good character. So, for me, it's not really so much a discussion about the president in terms of his character alone, but you also have to look at competencies, strengths, weaknesses, and how these are going to assist in the development of St. Kitts and Nevis, assist or retardation. My biggest peeve with the entire process is the practice of fielding a slate of candidates as members of your potential executive committee. I have a fundamental issue with that. Now, I've openly stated that I never liked the first past the post electoral system, but it is what it is. I do think that the majority of members should be allowed the opportunity to elect whom they so desire as president and as vice president and otherwise. My greater concern, though, is the executive committee members, because the executive committee has a major responsibility of managing all the other subcommittees. And from my count, there were no less than 10 to 12 other subcommittees, whether it be the disciplinary, the players, that are being governed and managed by the executive committee. That the president's job, in of itself, in managing the executive committee, is a major task. And therefore, the people that he has around him has to be equally competent or more competent even to be able to assist in the execution of all the necessary duties that's going to be required of the executive committee. What has been happening now with the nomination of a slate of candidates is presidential nominees are trying to secure clubs' votes via selecting members from clubs as their nominees and therefore putting them on their slate so that everyone runs together on this. In this way, I suppose you are securing X amount of votes depending on the amount of seats. Say, persons you have, 7 executive committee members along with the first and second vice president. So you're talking about 9 different clubs if this slate methodology is going to work. We're talking about 9 different clubs, and that can gain additional representation via this slate approach. Here's my challenge. There are so many individuals who have competencies, have time and resources, have experience, and have a genuine love for the game of football and for the development of football in St. Kitts and Nevis. But what they do not want to do is to get involved in any sort of slate slash party politics. Now I'll get into the national involvement. So based on the nature of how this nomination process has become, there are persons who, because there's absolutely no reason why there are persons who may not necessarily be members of a particular club, maybe experienced administratively, maybe experienced in football, and can contribute extensively to football in St. Kitts and Nevis, whether on a technical level, whether on an administrative level, whether on a management level, but they do not want to be identified with either candidate. And I think that's a fair position to take. But what room is there for this individual now to be nominated? Because most clubs would, in order to nominate, to have the confidence of having their individual on the executive committee, would want to show full support for a presidential candidate's slate without giving real thought to who is really qualified to hold those other additional executive positions. So yes, you as a president may think that this person should be nominated based on your experience with a presidential nominee, I should say, based on your working with them and your history with them. But there are other persons out there who may have similar competencies, may want to be involved, but do not want to be part of the slate. Where's the voice for that person? If you are successful, how are you going to get that dissenting opinion that would help correct your vision or your way of doing things when it needs correcting going forward? Or is it just about getting your people involved? Because if it is that you just get your people involved and persons vote a slate, then you're certain of one thing. You're going to get unanimous agreement on most decisions. But is that beneficial for football SKN? Is dissenting opinion supposed to just be cast aside now? Because obviously this individual used to or ran against somebody on my slate. So there's an unfortunate divisiveness now in terms of your interaction, because persons already thinking at the next election now and whatever opportunities or whatever slights may have been done or said in this particular going around. So immediately the nature of the entire engagement is one of division. And I thought I had someone, a mutual, very good friend of mine, send me the executive committees, or I shouldn't say the executive, the constitution of the SKN. And I just wanted to touch briefly on Article 4 as to the responsibilities of the SKN. And because I think it's important to Article 4 says, as the responsibilities, what are the responsibilities? Promoting friendly relations. The SKNFA shall promote friendly relations between its members, clubs, officials and players, and in society for humanitarian objectives. Every person and organization involved in a game of football is obliged to observe the statutes, regulations, and the principles of fair play, as well as the principles principles of loyalty, integrity, and sportsmanship. The SKNFA shall provide the necessary institutional means to resolve any internal dispute that may arise between members, clubs, officials, and players of the SKNFA. Now, how can you provide institutional means if the very nature of your being put there is divisive? And if your main job as president of the SKNFA and the executive committee of the SKNFA is to promote friendly relations between members, clubs, officials, then can you not see how this approach, this format by which has been adopted, and the historians will correct me, but this is not how it is accustomed to be done. And as far as I'm aware, it is a new age phenomenon of the last 2 decades or so. But can you now see how this methodology, this format, is damaging SKN football? And now that, and maybe if you weren't seeing it before, can you not see now this is being explained a little further? Having a discussion with a former president of SKNF football. And the thing is, I think I also needed to preface this entire monologue by saying that I have ultimate respect for this, for the football, the quality of football that's played in St. Kitts and Nevis. And this is me coming from the nationality of a Trinidadian and passing through at least 3 or 4. I have traversed the Caribbean and have been involved in football on a Caribbean level now for nearly 2 decades. And St. Kitts and Nevis has always, I mean, you are literally consistently punching above your weight on the football scene, regional. And your legacy is one of a country with stars that are known in other Caribbean islands, more so than your other larger compatriots such as Antigua and St. Vincent and St. Lucia, even Barbados. You know, yes, these countries sometimes we do have different focus, but in terms of your heritage, it's a very rich football heritage here in St. Kitts and Nevis. There's also a very keen understanding of the game and the way the game should be played, a surprisingly keen level on all, because there's so many persons who have been trained, who have played, who have just observed for many, many years and been involved for many, many years, and the conversations, the discussions, the debates, the level of information that is there. Your heritage is one that you should be really proud of. For some 70,000 people, you know, amidst a larger archipelago. So it is to no small credit that the SKNFA and its management of your affairs have allowed us to build a heritage of such note. And I think most of us don't want to just stop there either. The intention is to see us elevate, not just in terms of your status as far as ranked in the world, but to see the quality of player come through, the quality of football being played on the low, the impact in the in our communities where our young men and young women can now once again see themselves being footballing heroes in their own way, and therefore want to become actively participating in it because they see themselves in our athletes who may be going overseas, or their performances when we appear against the other larger countries in World Cup qualifiers, friendlies, or otherwise. So my imploring for ease to this entire very bitter, very caustic election cycle, SKNFA, is grounded purely in the fact that I think that we have the capacity to do even better and build an even greater legacy in football in St. Kitts and Nevis than we have right now. As I mentioned caustic, and I'm just going to do this briefly. It is in poor taste when you also have social media hacks for political parties or supporters for that matter. I should not use the word, or national political parties abusing persons, members of persons who are nominated or putting themselves up for election in the upcoming SKNF elections. Article 3 in the Constitution speaks to neutrality and non-discrimination. The first item is the SKNFA is neutral in matters of politics and religion. Now that's an idea. I appreciate that that's utopia and you're always going to get some level of involvement. But what it should never be seen is it being in some way dragged into the political rancor that we all know is very distasteful on a national level. Football has never been traditionally good when settled via political means. It's never grown, it's never benefited any country. So, persons who may have supporters, at the very least, the expectation is just ask them to be respectful in their approach, at the very least. If it is not a good look to have members, fans or otherwise, accusing other members or persons who are nominees of different acts of wrongdoing and all sorts of personal malfeasance that really malfeasance that does not belong within the discussion of. If you have problems with the performance of any member, then that should be managed within the arms of the executive committee and the disciplinary committee and other methodologies that we can use, and do it properly. Don't do it on a biased basis. Do it, transparently, so that we all can see that this is not being handled in an autocratic manner. So, I want to even break down. Okay, so before I break down, push aside I'm putting that political involvement, national politics involvement to rest. Should not happen. Candidates, supporters, nominees, please do the right thing as it relates to that. Next, I want to ask is, in terms of this slate methodology, suppose I would have wanted, as a club member and elect a voting member, I want to vote Mr. X as president. However, I also like the vice presidential candidate that's on the slate. So you don't see how that could be a genuine conflict of interest on all sides, in the sense that the reason you like the person from vice is probably because they're better suited to the task, whether executive committee member or first or second vice president. But because you've committed your presidential vote to Mr. X, it would be a betrayal to vote for a vice president because obviously there's a certain level of trust now that has to be built where I have you as a nominee or I give you your nominee on my slate. Therefore, there's a certain level of trust I am placing in you that you would vote accordingly. Yes? So anything less is a betrayal. And then it's the mere fact that that is set up that way, a betrayal of what you're constitutionally supposed to do as an executive member, as a member of the SKNFA, in the sense that you're supposed to elect the best person for each position at all times. How can you assure me then that based on the slate methodology that's being employed and promoted, that this is the best way to do it? There are some persons who also they know that they don't have certain competencies. They may know that they may not want to necessarily perform this particular task, but because they're nominated, they're forced to again go along with it. But what about being genuinely a team player and saying, you know what? I am not as good as this as XYZ. I would prefer to support the nomination. Somebody else. That's being a team player because you know that that individual's strengths will be more of an asset to the organization and to the development. Again, the goal is the development of football in St. Kitts and Nevis. All levels. That's where all the proposals speak to youth and female and everything. I'm not seeing anybody speaking to the administrative part. Mind you, I'm not even starting the discussion yet about the appointments of the General Secretary, because General Secretary and the Secretariat are the arms and legs of the SKNFA. And how it is currently managed, where, I mean, forgive me if I have this wrong, these things are promised prior to elections. Again, is a discredit to the entire process. 3 applications, no less than, and you take the best out of the 3, not your friend. Not because this person loyal to you, because sometimes the person might be loyal to you, but not necessarily the best person to execute the task as needs to be executed. So commitments made to persons handpicking prior to even elections being held for positions like the General Secretary, again, is destructive to the process. It should not happen. And persons who may be involved in these sorts of meanderings and wheelings and dealings, because obviously there's not one person going to look at yourselves and try and figure out exactly what it is you're doing this for. Is it really to help St. Kitts and Nevis football? Or is it to help yourselves? Whatever personal, political, religious, or otherwise reason. The partner? No, it's the most competent individual. That's supposed to be. They're supposed to be he's given the role of General Secretary. An application process, as I said. And the mere fact that we've strayed so far away from the original spirit by which we were supposed to be conducting these affairs and conducting the affairs of the of football in St. Kitts and Nevis is very, very disheartening. But I'm hoping that I can implore the powers that be now, the members of the clubs who are going to make the decisions coming up over the next few weeks, to start righting the ship now. Because it was not this way before. Start writing it now, because the thing is, the reason we are where we are is because of the work put in by those that went before. Yes, you can lose track, but you can also bring yourselves back on track. But that comes from collectively, as members of the SKNFA, all 27 clubs and associations that are voting in the upcoming elections, to make the right decisions. And then whomever is elected as president and executive committee to make a commitment to start making the right decisions, not for favors, not for friends, not for financial gain. All of those things will come as part and parcel of any sort of leadership position. But if that's your goal for going in, then you've already lost. St. Kitts has lost, and eventually you will too. So I'm hoping that there's going to be a new president come August 27th. There's going to be a new executive. We are also presented with familiar challenges of how COVID has affected the last few seasons. So there's some major decisions to fall over the next few months, years. And we start to get it right. That decision rests solely with the presidents, the members of our individual clubs, and all voting members. I can only ask, I can only implore you, take heed of the Constitution of the Cricket Leaguers Football Association. Give yourself the opportunity to go through it and not just understand the rules and regulations, because everybody gets caught up in the rules and regulations and then find different ways and means of breaching them, and then, oh, it's not a breach of the rules, but it's the spirit. It's the principles espoused. Yes, you could be right, in the sense that legally you're right, they're doing the wrong thing. If we follow the statutes as laid out, they could be doing something to hurt St. Leaguers football in the long term. None of us want that. So, as much as I'm going to offer my best wishes to candidates, nominees, and everything else, I'm also encouraging you to look inward and try and get this thing right. Let's correct this. Because what is happening now is not a good reflection. Internally, externally, as far as the election goes. It's too late now to change it. Can't change it moving forward. Best wishes. I will be peering very keenly, holding all persons, as long as I'm in the capacity to do so, holding all persons accountable. Because next 4 years or so, it's going to be critical. Thank you all for being here with me this afternoon. I don't think it's a solemn note. I just think it's a note of information, sharing an opinion, and I will be open to hearing your commentaries and your feedback the next week, as I usually do. I do wish all persons remain safe. We still have one or two more cases than we really should be having. In fact, if we could have 0, that would be my preferred number. The persons who are inclined to get vaccinated, I think you have like 1 more day or so. If you can try and do so before the deadline for the second shot. But if you're not, just try and follow the protocols. Use Delta variant, and even the normal variants can be deadly. So do what you can to protect yourself. Again, to the persons who are putting up themselves, all the best wishes. And to all of you who have spent the last hour or so hearing me ramble on about this football situation, I appreciate you sharing your time with me. And I look forward to doing so again next week with a guest, or definitely with more building. Well, thank you once again. It's been a great afternoon. Thanks for being here. Kenneth Bob signing out from the bench meeting on a lovely Sunday afternoon.
For real and unbiased sports